This video covers rhetorical structure theory. I'll provide an overview of rhetorical structure theory and then introduce some common rhetorical structure theory relations. I'll discuss how these relations can be organized hierarchically in a discourse tree, and then close by covering elementary discourse units. Rhetorical structure theory is the most commonly used discourse model. It's based on a set of 23 rhetorical relations that can exist between two or more spans of text in a given discourse. Most often, one span will be a nucleus, so it'll be a central concept that can be interpreted independently, and the other span will be a satellite, which can't be interpreted without the nucleus. However, sometimes you'll also see cases with two or more nuclei. The relations in rhetorical structure theory are asymmetric. So if a span A is a satellite of a span B, that does not at all suggest that span B is a satellite of span A. When you see rhetorical structure relations presented graphically, you'll usually see two spans of text connected with an arrow that points from the satellite to the nucleus. As mentioned in the previous slide, there are 23 possible relations in rhetorical structure theory, and each of these relations is defined by a set of constraints placed on the nucleus and satellite. These constraints are based both on the goals and beliefs of the reader and writer, and the text effect on the reader. Some of the most common rhetorical structure theory relations are shown here, including elaborations, attributions, contrasts, lists, reasons, and evidence. We can walk through them and see examples of each. To start with, in an elaboration, the satellite provides further information regarding the nucleus's content. For example, in the sentence, Natalie told the class that there was no assignment due next week, reminding them that the grad students' research highlights were due on Monday instead, the nucleus, Natalie told the class that there was no assignment due next week, could stand on its own if needed. However, the remainder of the sentence provides further information elaborating why there was, in this case, no assignment due. In an attribution, the satellite provides information regarding where the reported content in the nucleus came from. In the example here, we can see that the nucleus, there was no assignment due next week, can be attributed to the speaker, Natalie. A contrast is a case where rather than there being a nucleus and a satellite, there will be two nuclei or possibly even more. Specifically, a contrast is used to show how the two nuclei differ along some important dimension. In the example sentence here, the two nuclei outside was freezing and inside was uncomfortably warm, differ in terms of temperature. A list provides a series of nuclei without any contrast or explicit comparison between them. For example, we might see three somewhat parallel nuclei like what are shown in the example. Each of them, for example, in the fall Natalie taught CS 421, can stand on its own, and none of them are specifically highlighting major differences. In the reason relation, the satellite provides the reason for the action that is carried out in the nucleus. For example, we may have a nucleus, Natalie spent a lot of time staring at her webcam on Monday. This could conceivably be for a lot of different reasons, and the specific reason here is provided in the satellite. She had 6 long Zoom meetings. Finally, in an evidence relation, the nucleus provides a statement, and the satellite provides information to back that statement up. For example, we might have the nucleus, Natalie must be here. Then we have some convincing evidence from a non-COVID era. Her office door is cracked open. Relations in rhetorical structure theory can be hierarchically organized into discourse trees, which allows us to capture important argumentation patterns. For example, if we start with a text here, we could convert it to the hierarchical discourse tree that you see here. For example, we can see that there's a top-level elaboration, which is composed of an elaboration and an example. The example is itself a concession, which can be broken down into a satellite and a nucleus. The second-level elaboration can be broken down into background justification and an elaboration, and the elaboration can be broken down into a nucleus itself and a contrast, and the contrast can be broken down into a nucleus and evidence, which can finally be broken down into a nucleus and a satellite. In the hierarchical tree that we just covered, the rhetorical structure relations are nodes, and the leaves are what are referred to as elementary discourse units. Determining the exact boundaries of elementary discourse units is challenging, but facilitates better natural language understanding. One simple way to extract elementary discourse units is to split segments at commas, sentence boundaries, and key terms, and apply some rule-based heuristic to determine nuclei and satellites. However, there are also more sophisticated methods that extract elementary discourse units using neural networks or reinforcement learning.